Hey guys, this is Dr. Hub. Today we look at the modern sewage treatment. So first we look at the outline. So in the outline, first there is raw treatment, raw sewage. So raw sewage, it leads to the screening. So there is screen. Next comes the grit chamber. And post this comes the primary sedimentation tank. So this primary sedimentation tank, and post this comes the aeration tank. So next comes the aeration tank, as well as the secondary sedimentation tank. Then is the tertiary final effluent. There is a tertiary final effluent. Then comes the disposal. So water is present in the primary treatment. It is from the raw sewage to that of the primary sedimentation. So it is from there to the primary sedimentation tank. This comes as primary treatment. And next what follows is the secondary treatment. So as when we discussed from the grit chamber, there is a sludge digestion tank. Sludge digestion tank. So what this does is, there is a primary sedimentation tank. Then comes the aeration tank, and next was a secondary sedimentation tank. So here, from the sludge to the primary sedimentation tank, it goes to the sludge digestion tank. It goes to the sludge digestion tank. This will be the secondary sludge. Next is, from the sludge digestion tank, there is a supernatant which joins between the grit chamber to that of the primary secondary sedimentation tank. And the sludge digestion tank, from the secondary sedimentation tank, there is a secondary sludge which is moving again to the sludge digestion tank. So this is again the secondary sludge. So in between there is a recycled sludge which goes back to the in between the primary sedimentation tank and the aeration tank. So this will be the recycled sludge. Next is the sludge digestion tank. From the sludge digestion tank, it moves. This will be the gas, that is the CH4 as well as the CO2. Next, there is a supernatant which flows between the sludge digestion tank to the primary sedimentation tank. Supernatant. And there is also a sludge disposal which takes place from the sludge digestion tank. Now let's look in detail. So first was the primary treatment. So what do we have in primary treatment? There is a screening. So in terms of screening, there is a large metal screen. There is a large metal screen, and it is used to intercept the large floating objects. So it intercepts the large floating objects, and this can include the dead animals, wood, rags. So it prevents clogging. Next comes the grit chamber. grit chamber. So it is also known as a detritus chamber. And it allows us a settlement of heavier solids. So heavy solids settle heavy particles, it settles and permits the organic matter to flow through. Then the grit is collected at the bottom, is then disposed of. So grit which is collected is then disposed. Then we have the primary sedimentation. In terms of the primary sedimentation, it is a primary, there is a sewage is allowed to flow slowly through a suspended matter. So sewage is allowed slowly so that the suspended matter, that sediments from the sludge, when it is removed, the sewage is allowed to flow slowly. It goes slowly so that the suspended matter, that sediments from the sludge, is removed. So the suspended matter from the sludge, it will be removed. And the biological action takes place here and breaks down the complex organic solids. So complex solids, complex particles will break down. And the scum is in the form of the grease and fat collects at the top of the tank. So there is something known as scum. It is something like a grease or fat which collects on the top of the tank. And there are some chemicals like lime are added to the effluent to enhance the precipitation. To enhance the precipitation, there is addition of effluent. Next we look at the secondary treatment. So the secondary treatment, the effluent from the primary sedimentation tank is subjected to the aerobic oxidation and by trickling filter method or activated sludge process. So this was by the trickling filter or by the activated sludge. Next, first we will look at the trickling filter method. So here the trickling or the precipitating filter is a bed of crushed stones or clinker. So the filter is a bed of crushed stones, or the clinkers. The effluent from the primary sedimentation tank is spread over the filter bed and it percolates through it. So if you see the effluent from the primary sedimentation tank, it is spread over the filter bed. And as it percolates through it, it is spread over the filter bed and it percolates through it. It gets oxidized by the bacterial flora. So it is oxidized by the bacterial flora and there is no actual filtration that occurs. So there is no actual filtration that occurs, and the oxidized sewage, if you see, it forms a light green material called humus. So the oxidized sewage, it nothing but forms a humus, and it then leads to the secondary sedimentation tank. So then it moves to the secondary sedimentation tank. Then begins the activated sludge process. So an activated sludge process, there is the heart of the activated sludge process is the aeration tank. So the heart of the activated sludge process is the aeration tank. So in these tanks, the effluent from the primary sedimentation is mixed with the activated or return sludge. So the effluent, if you see, the effluent from the primary sedimentation, it is mixed with the activated or return sludge. So you add the activated or the return sludge. And this is a sludge from the final setting tank. It is then exposed to the aeration for 6 to 8 hours. Then it is exposed to the aeration, and this exposure, this will be for 6 to 8 hours. Next is during the aeration. So during aeration, there will be organic matter is oxidized, and it is into the carbon dioxide as well as nitrates. Then comes water with the help of aerobic bacteria in the activated sludge. With help of aerobic bacteria in the activated sludge. Next, we move on to the secondary sedimentation. So in secondary sedimentation is from the trickling fibers or the aeration tanks. The oxidized sewage is allowed to into the secondary sedimentation tank, where it is held for 2 to 3 hours. So the waiting period is 2 to 3 hours, and here the aeration sludge or the activated sludge is formed. So it helps in the formation of the aerated sludge or activated sludge, and it is formed, and part of which is pumped back into the aeration tank. So part is pumped back, this is to the aeration tank. Next, we will look at the sludge digestion. So under sludge digestion, it can be done by incubating it under the favorable condition to allow the aerobic auto digestion. So incubate it under favorable condition to allow the anaerobic auto digestion. There is anaerobic auto digestion, and this is done in the sludge digestion tanks. Is done in sludge digestion tanks. Then the disposal of the sludge is done by sea disposal. Disposal of the sludge is by sea disposal, and the sludge can also be disposed by the composting with solid refuse. So the sludge, it can be disposed by composting with solid refuge. Composting with solid refuse. Next comes the question on the disposal of the effluent. So the disposal of the effluent. So here there is a disposal of the effluent can be done by dilution in water. So there is dilution in water bodies, which has to then be chlorinated. So dilution is by water bodies, and then it has to be chlorinated. Then comes the disposal on land. So there is disposal on land. So the disposal on land is possible if the effluent can be used for irrigation process. Disposal on land is possible if the effluent is used for irrigation process.